Watch this.
It was meant to encourage women to pursue an education in science and engineering. But before it's even been awarded, Boise State is under investigation for a new scholarship. The professor who filed the complaint tells us why it's discrimination. BSU tells us why it isn't. Well, that didn't take long. A week after it was signed into law, Idaho's abortion ban bill, which allows for doctors to be sued, is now going to court for exactly the same reason Governor Little was worried it would when he signed it. It's time for Treasure Valley canals to start filling up for the growing season. During the off-season, though, they tend to get filled up with things other than water. A look back on the annual spring canal cleanup. Man, there's a lot of scrap to scrape up. Last year, in early December, Boise State marketing student Allie Orr wanted to start a scholarship to encourage women who wanted to study STEM, medicine, or law. This idea came to her shortly after she heard what BSU tenured political science professor Scott Yenner said in a speech about women pursuing higher education, about how we shouldn't encourage them to go to college, but instead encourage them to be wives and mothers.
Women seek their purpose in life in mid-level bureaucratic jobs like human resource management, environmental protection, and marketing. They are more medicated, meddlesome, and quarrelsome than women need to be. Every effort must be made not to recruit women into engineering, but rather to recruit and demand more of men who become engineers.
Remember that? Of course you do. Well, that set Allie on setting up a scholarship. She wanted to raise like $10,000, not much. And she immediately blew past that goal. The latest update, we looked at it today. She has raised more than $199,000, nearly $200,000 on her GoFundMe page. The first Allie P. Orr Women in STEM, Medicine, and Law Scholarship is set to be awarded on April 17th. And you may be thinking, that's amazing to go from an idea to raising nearly $200,000 to helping someone realize their academic goal in just 4 months. But for one Minnesota man, it's maybe amazing, but it's also illegal, according to him. Dr. Mark Perry spent 25 years as a professor of economics at the University of Michigan's Flint campus. He's now a professor emeritus, and for the last several years, he's been on a one-man mission, he calls it, to find and eliminate discrimination on college campuses, mostly focusing on Title VI and Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. Title VI, passed in 1964, prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in any program or activity that receives federal funds. And that can be financial assistance or Pell Grants, federally subsidized student loans, research grants, that kind of stuff. Title IX, part of the Education Amendments of 1972, added on the basis of sex to those protections, which later included pregnancy, sexual orientation, and gender identity. So that's where Allie's scholarship comes in. Specifying it was for women made it discriminatory against men, according to Dr. Perry. So in January, he filed a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights in Seattle, saying by offering this scholarship, Boise State is violating federal law.
Overall, I've filed 430 Title IX and Title VI complaints because based on my research over the last 3 years, I've uncovered more than 1,000 violations across higher education in America for programs that discriminate either on the basis of sex and gender identity or discriminate on the basis of race, color, and national origin.
Dr. Mark Perry says of those 430 complaints, 237 have led to an investigation by the Office of Civil Rights. He's filed twice before about Boise State. Once about a National Education for Women program at the school that apparently once specified applicants had to identify as a woman. He also complained about a Boise State-sponsored robotics team known as the Chickadees, who 2 years ago touted themselves as an all-girls team. Both investigations have since been resolved by the school dropping gender requirements. But gender requirements are what drew Dr. Perry's attention to Boise State's Women in STEM, Medicine, and Law Scholarship.
You know, I follow higher education news every day, and so this one got a lot of national attention when the scholarship was created, I think back in January.
Did you reach out to the school to ask them about it to see if maybe they were already in compliance, like if they had thought of those things?
Well, you know, after 3 years of kind of full-time experience with this my general experience is that if I reach out to a university as just an unaffiliated person, that they generally just ignore any requests that I send for an evaluation of a program. So then I realize that it's, more effective for me just to go right to the Office for Civil Rights, because the Office for Civil Rights is obligated to investigate all complaints.
His complaint? By offering the gender-specific scholarship, Boise State is violating Title IX, discriminating against non-female students on the basis of sex and gender identity. Last week, the Office of Civil Rights decided to proceed with an investigation. This week, Boise State responded, saying they've worked with OCR for years to develop a scholarship policy that complies with all discrimination laws, Title IX included, to both honor donor wishes and still stay within the lines of federal law. Basically, if a school uses the pool and match system for scholarships, that would be okay. Is that your understanding?
Well, in some cases, that's a way that the Office for Civil Rights will allow a gender-specific or sex-specific scholarship to continue. But what I would say is that then the scholarship was created to give women an advantage in getting scholarship money, especially for, STEM and medicine and law. But if now the university has to match that dollar for dollar with scholarship funding that's going to go to male students, then it would kind of defeat the purpose of the scholarship, or it would kind of neutralize it.
Well, what I guess then, maybe the scholarship isn't just necessarily to gain an advantage over men, but just to open up opportunities for women. And so it's not a zero-sum game kind of thing.
Well, it is a zero-sum game, though, in the sense that if this scholarship funding is going exclusively to women, then the university has to allocate some additional funds or find resources or additional scholarship funding that will accommodate male students on a dollar-for-dollar basis. So then the overall net effect would be neutral or zero.
Why make this a one-man mission? Why is this so important to you?
Well, I think it's, out of a sense of just that it's illegal to do that. And then it's that to discriminate on the basis of sex or gender. I think most people agree with that. And then it's also just out of a sense of justice and fairness and equality, that we should not be treating one group of students or faculty differently from another based on gender, sex, gender identity, race, color, national origin.
Dr. Perry pointed out Boise State's enrollment is 58% women right now. So the argument that women are having a hard time being academically successful at BSU is hard to believe and contradicted by evidence. But in engineering, women make up less than 20% of Boise State's undergrad students as of 2021. However, believing women weren't given opportunities at Boise State wasn't really why Allie Orr wanted to create that scholarship in the first place.
I want this scholarship to, one, make a statement right now that says this community doesn't believe everything that Scott says. We don't believe anything he says. And two, going forward, because it's an endowed scholarship, I want women to know, and it's in the description in the scholarship, that you're probably going to face obstacles because you are women in these fields of studies, but people have your back.
So the scholarship was to encourage that and let them know, yeah, people have your back. By the way, based on the donations that came in before the end of last year, about $2,400 will be awarded to the first recipient of this scholarship next month. With much more available, future scholarship awards will be bigger, of course. Now, speaking of the future, when will we know the outcome of this investigation? Whether this scholarship is legal? Well, we just don't know just yet. We do know there was another single-sex scholarship complaint filed in June of 2020 that is still under investigation, and no, it wasn't filed by Dr. Perry. But if that gives you any idea, it could take a while. It's been 2 years since then. We've reached out to the Office of Civil Rights, and we're still waiting to hear back. In an unexpected, or I should say expected development, Idaho's new 6-week abortion ban is being taken to court 1 week after Governor Little signed Senate Bill 1309 into law. The reason it's being challenged? Exactly the reasons the governor expressed concerns over when he signed it, explaining it in detail in his letter. So what happens now? Joe Paris has those details.
1 week after being signed by Governor Little, Idaho's new 6-week abortion ban is being challenged in court.
It is purely and entirely designed to circumvent and dismiss our constitutional protections and right to abortion.
Rebecca Gibron is the interim CEO of Planned Parenthood Great Northwest. Planned Parenthood filed a petition in the Idaho Supreme Court early Wednesday seeking a judgment to have the new law blocked before it goes into effect on April 22nd.
This bill is blatantly unconstitutional. Even Governor Little, who signed the bill into law, called the law unconstitutional and unwise in a letter to the legislature. Today, we are taking action to restore and protect Idahoans' right to abortion.
Governor Little and the Idaho Attorney General's office both expressed concerns about the legality of Senate Bill 1309, specifically the novel enforcement mechanism included in the law. It allows the father, grandparents, siblings, aunts, and uncles of a preborn child to each sue an abortion provider for a minimum of $20,000 in damages within 4 years of an abortion. Carrie Flaxman, Senior Director of Public Policy, Litigation, and Law with Planned Parenthood Federation of America, details the major constitutional issues they see with the law.
It violates the separation of powers limits in the Constitution by taking authority to enforce the law away from the executive, away from prosecutors. This is not the way laws are supposed to be enforced. It's not the way our system works. The Idaho Constitution precludes the legislature from doing that. It also violates equal protection rights because it completely changes the rules of litigation against abortion providers who can be subject to unlimited damages.
In debate at the State House, lawmakers who supported Senate Bill 1309 said they were working to protect life, specifically life that cannot defend itself.
If it is not alive, why does it require outside intervention to terminate it? And since it has its own DNA, its own circulatory system, and often of a different blood type, sex, or even race different from the mother's, it cannot logically be considered the body of the mother.
The petition to the court also includes Idaho family medicine physician Dr. Caitlin Gustafson. She details the results of the law for women seeking care in the future.
By passing Senate Bill 1309, Idaho politicians decided to make Idahoans' healthcare decisions for them. They are preventing physicians from providing patients with what is routine medical care. Instead of treating our patients, we'll be sending them to out-of-state providers.
Planned Parenthood and other advocacy groups are now working to raise funds and resources to help Idaho women get a safe abortion outside the state. But advocates say not everyone will get the help they need in the future because of this new law.
Not every patient will be able to travel. So this law is cruel. It is harmful. It will raise maternal mortality rates. We know that abortion bans do that. And particularly for marginalized communities in our state, it is absolutely government overreach in its finest form. These bans don't stop the need for abortion. They stop safe access to abortion.
All right, Joe, last week when we talked about this, we expected it was going to be in court, but we were thinking that it had to have basically a party that is affected by this. Obviously, that's not the case. And when will they see their day in court?
So the party in this case will now be the doctor that we just heard from and Planned Parenthood, and they're really going after the civil enforcement mechanism. To answer your question, though, Brian, they're hoping to get into an Idaho court, the Idaho Supreme Court specifically, before April 22nd. Again, that's 30 days out from Governor Little's signing of the Senate Bill 1308. So, 1309. Now, Brian, the idea is to get into court, but they don't have a date yet. They actually just filed the documents we were showing you on screen early this morning. So they also filed an idea to have an expedited hearing, and they want to have oral arguments in the Idaho Supreme Court soon. So if that happens, and we can expect that it likely will happen, that they'll get their day in court before April 22nd, it'll ultimately be up to a judge here in the state of Idaho to say yes or no. Now, to be very clear, the petition being brought forward, it just is for state. It has nothing to do with being brought up to a federal level or this trying to make the Supreme Court. This is about the state of Idaho and the civil enforcement mechanism. Now, there's a difference between what's going on in Idaho and Texas, because in Texas, the government has something called sovereign immunity, meaning that the exact same thing that we're seeing play out here in Idaho, it doesn't work exactly the same in Texas. So a lot of people are comparing the Idaho legislation to Texas, and there's good reason to, but the judicial, I guess, arrangements here are different. So we'll have to watch it play out.
All right. There's a lot to watch. All right. Thanks, Joe. The drought may have us wanting more, but whatever water we have now will soon be making its way down our area canals, the lifeblood for farmers and even backyard gardeners. So while you're getting your ground ready, there are also those out there working to make sure the canals are cleaned out. A messy job in a 208 redial. How about some current 208 conversation? We want your questions, your comments, and even your complaints, as long as they're clean and clever. Send us a text message to the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. Don't forget to include your name and the hashtag #the208, and make sure you stick around. We're hoping to share as many as we can, coming up in about 10 minutes. April is almost here, just 2 days away, coming up on Friday. And typically, Treasure Valley canals begin to fill with water for irrigators this time of year, around April 1st. But since the water stops flowing in the fall, some of those canals tend to collect items not necessarily meant for, well, water during the dry months. In this 208 redial, John Miller followed along with an irrigation crew to see what all collects in those empty canals and how crews clean up the mess.
It all starts at 3 a.m. with a push of a button.
It's a big day every year. This is the start of our season.
By sunrise, Andy Madsen is waiting miles down the Reidenbach Canal.
It's so early right now, I forgot to put my belt on when I put the pants on this morning.
There's probably a belt down in there if you look long enough.
A belt would be just the beginning.
I got a tire and a lawn chair.
Shoes and bottles and barbecues, even ducks waiting.
What you're going to see is some real dirty water coming down here at first.
A flow of foulness consuming boxes and cushions, tossing tin cans into tires, to which even a duck would turn up its nose, scattering cats and our camera guys. Hey, get out of the way!
We got a little litter problem in Boise, don't we?
We got a big litter problem.
What are some of the weird things you found?
I've been doing this for 23 years. You'd have to pick what we haven't found.
John Anderson's seen the sludge consume bicycles and shopping carts.
You name it, we've probably found it or fished it out.
From Fisher-Price toys to fire extinguishers.
I think people use it for a trash can. They'll go trim their trees and half of it ends up in here.
And witness our tax dollars at work.
That's just nasty.
Yeah, it's pretty bad stuff.
Stuff that collects at 30 different stops, where they pluck it out with giant claws and offer just this simple sanitary reminder.
Please don't throw your trash in our canal system.
It's not the place for Fisher-Price toys.
It's a big mess.
It's a real big mess.
John Miller, Idaho's News Channel 7.
Well, the Nampa Meridian Irrigation District, who runs the Reidenbach Canal, hasn't decided yet when they will start filling that canal. It's usually around the 1st of April, as you said, but they're meeting Tuesday to make that decision. And of course, another low water year like this is going to weigh heavily on that discussion. Now, as you heard him say, please don't throw your trash in our canals. Well, trash is one thing they don't want to find in the canals. Your kids are another. Irrigation districts and fire departments want to remind everyone to not swim in or let your canals, or you let your pets, that is, swim in the canals. Keep your distance from the edges of those canals as well, as those banks can be unstable and slick and steep and tough to get out of. Canals are meant for irrigation, Pools, splash pads, those are meant for humans.
Well, let me begin by looking at the Boise River, or Boise Valley system for the Boise River and the reservoirs around the area that fill into the Boise River. So just to comment that Lucky Peak Reservoir right now is about 42% full. Anderson Ranch is 37% full. Now, Arrow Rock, which feeds into these, is up to 88%, that's looking pretty good, but we'd like to see these fuller at this particular time. If we melted all the snow in the mountains and brought them down into the reservoirs, we might get 2/3 or something like that. So we are behind. We need a wet spring, as you know. I don't have it at this particular point. Tomorrow's 54, it cools down. Look for a breezy, windy evening tonight. Breezy and windy tonight. Still kind of breezy for into Friday. It's going to be off and on. Temperatures will come up next week, but then they come down with hopefully a chance of some showers. That'll give us a little bit of snow in the mountains as you look at next Monday and Tuesday, but we're not looking at a lot out of this storm system.
Well, I'm sure you've heard that age-old question. Why did the chicken cross the road? Well, many have studied, performed experiments, taken guesses, trying to figure this whole thing out. And we almost had the answer today. Jacob Nordby shot video of a rooster crossing Eckert Road in southeast Boise. This is it. Well, I wouldn't say crossing the road, almost crossing Eckert Road. Because, I mean, if the answer is to get to the other side, that's not what happened today. Maybe it was a case of where you walk into a room, forget why you walked in there in the first place, and you had to turn around and go back and see if you can figure that. We've all been there. Maybe that was the case. Maybe Foghorn Leghorn there couldn't remember why he started crossing the road and then just said, well, whatever, I'll just head back. So why did the chicken cross the road? Apparently to cause a traffic jam. Not much of one, though, because he quickly left, because you can see everybody kind of stopped. Well, except for that car. The other car stopped. Not that car. Just that one over there. Thanks, Jacob, for posting that to the Weather Watchers Facebook page. All right, quick moments here for your comments and your questions you sent in. This one here, love the 2-8. First complaint, why even give it's Dr. Perry out of Minnesota, a platform? Obviously an uneducated sexist. Well, Rob, this is kind of what we do, is we want to know why things are happening. So we had to ask him why he filed this complaint and get his side of the story. And to be fair, if he wants to make things even, this is kind of how you go about it. And we just wanted to get that explanation from him and, of course, from BSU. If it's found to be unconstitutional, who's going to pay the legal fees? Well, there's a point that they've set up a little bit, or the legislature put more funds into a legislative defense fund, and that will help cover the cost of a lawsuit. What about men's sports scholarships that are far more common and larger than women's scholarships? Ask Andrea. There are 10 women's sports at Boise State, only 6 men, so you can see where they kind of even things out that way. We'll see you back here tomorrow.